Just 1 hour ago, a judge issued a shocking arrest warrant for Ellen DeGeneres. This comes after a chilling audio recording by the late Stephen "Twitch" Boss was played in court, and it's already sending shockwaves through Diddy's ongoing trial. Inside a tense courtroom at the Superior Court of California, Judge Harrison Trent stunned everyone. He formally signed an arrest warrant for Ellen, the beloved media icon, a moment that felt almost surreal. Why? Because of a previously sealed audio memo, reportedly recorded just weeks before Twitch's tragic death in December 2022. The moment it played in court, everything changed. What was believed to be a tragic suicide may now be something far more disturbing. Reporters were removed, legal teams scrambled, and when they returned, Judge Trent, calm and stone-faced, signed off on the federal warrant without hesitation. So what was in that audio? Let's rewind. The recording starts with 4 haunting words. This isn't random. Twitch's voice is calm, focused, resigned. It's the voice of someone who's decided the truth is all they have left. "I don't know who will hear this," he continues, "but if they find me, if they say it's suicide, no. This isn't random. This is because of what I know, what I saw." What followed wasn't loud. It was slow, painful, precise. A verbal map of fear, pressure, paranoia, and parties. But not just any parties. We're talking about secret late-night events, hosted in penthouse suites under fake names, allegedly set up and protected by Diddy, now facing conspiracy and trafficking charges. Then came the most stunning line on the tape. "I went with Ellen. She told me to smile, said everyone in the room was safe. But it didn't feel safe." His voice cracked. Just once. Not a single mention of blackmail. But he didn't need to say it. It was officially ruled a suicide. A note was found at the scene, but its contents never fully released. At the time, authorities said the note referenced personal struggles. That was it. But as the court listened to Twitch's voice, line by line, a very different story began to unfold. In that audio, Twitch spoke with growing unease. He talked about how his role with Ellen pulled him deeper into elite, secretive social circles, places where things weren't what they seemed. He never used full names, just initials, descriptions, codes. He mentioned E, S, and a billionaire producer known only for his private compound on the East Coast. But more than names, it was the patterns that stood out. Blocked calls, last-minute invites, events in lockdown venues, NDAs signed blindly. And then, a chilling warning: if anything happens, don't just look at Diddy. For decades, Ellen DeGeneres was America's sweetheart, a trailblazing comedian, a daytime icon, a symbol of kindness. But in 2020, that image began to crack. Dozens of former staffers accused her of creating a toxic workplace. Intimidation, racism, fear. Ellen apologized. Ratings dipped. But her brand mostly survived. Now that brand faces a reckoning. The audio doesn't paint her as a bystander. It suggests she was a participant, present in the very spaces where Twitch felt the most unsafe. "I was with her," he says. "She told me everything was fine, but I think she knew. I really do." After the memo went public, multiple ex-staffers came forward anonymously. They claimed they were warned never to question Ellen's connections, especially with high-powered figures like Diddy. Others described a workplace of deep surveillance and tight control, even after the show ended in 2022. And Judge Harrison Trent? No rookie. Court documents reveal that even before the audio, federal agents were quietly following the money. Ellen's travel logs, financial links, private events hosted by Diddy from 2019 to 2021. 2 of those events matched witness accounts. After-hours rooms, they called them. No phones. Rotating staff. Security by private firms with no traceable names. At one such event, Twitch was reportedly invited by Ellen herself. "It wasn't like the show," he says. "She wasn't Ellen that night." Now the world is split. Some fans stand by her, pointing to decades of charity and feel-good TV. Others? They've taken to social media with a new rallying cry. Number Justice for Twitch. And they're not backing down, but this is Hollywood, a world long accused of protecting its own. Ellen's legal team has denied all allegations. No arrest has been made, yet. But sources close to the case confirm authorities are in contact, and behind all the breaking news lingers one chilling truth. The man who danced for millions may have died trying to say something no one wanted to hear, until now. That haunting possibility brings us to the next explosive revelation. Day 2. Back in court. Less than 24 hours after Judge Trent signed Ellen's arrest warrant, the prosecution came back, stronger. They didn't just play another tape, they dropped a bombshell. A second audio file, titled Final Draft 4E. Analysts verified it, recorded just 3 days before Twitch's death. But this time his voice was different. This wasn't just a warning, it was a goodbye. I tried to believe you, I really did. You said people disappear because they want to, but I know that's not true. I know what I saw. I know who was there. If you're listening, it's already too late. And then the courtroom froze, because this wasn't vague, it was precise. Dates, locations, flight numbers. 2 of them directly matched party weekends linked to Diddy, and placed Ellen at the scene. Investigators confirmed Ellen's private jet landed in Los Angeles on both dates, December 11th, 2021, and April 9th, 2022. Publicly, she was listed as on break, working remotely, but behind the scenes, hotel records showed a penthouse reserved under a corporate alias tied to Ellen's own shell company. That penthouse? Same floor as Diddy's event. Then it got worse. Unreleased guest logs listed tWitch's boss under entertainment. A source inside the investigation told our team, "We were tracking Diddy. We didn't expect Ellen's name to surface. But the paper trail is too clean to ignore." And then, Allison Holker, Twitch's widow. Until now, the public saw her as a grieving mother, surviving unimaginable loss. But new documents revealed a stunning detail. Just weeks after Twitch's death, Allison accepted a $3.2 million settlement from an unnamed entertainment entity. The payment was labeled legacy disbursement. Her spokesperson claimed it was tied to residuals and estate management, but legal experts weren't buying it. "No one pays $3 million in residuals," said entertainment lawyer Rel Barnes. "That number screams hush money, pre-litigation silence." The court has now subpoenaed all communications between Allison Holker and her legal counsel, spanning November 2022 to March 2023. And as these revelations ripple through the public, former staffers from the Ellen DeGeneres show are breaking their silence. 3 former executive producers, speaking anonymously, revealed consistent and disturbing patterns. Conversations about Ellen's private guests were strictly off limits. After parties were common, but questions were not. And silence? That was part of the job. One producer described a chilling moment during the show's final season. Twitch came in late one morning, didn't say much, just sat there, staring at the floor. Ellen asked, "You good?" He replied, "Depends who's watching." Court records confirm that Twitch left 3 audio files. We've heard 2, but the third remains unplayed. Its title, "If They Say I Gave Up." Judge Harrison Trent has stated that the memo will be played only if its authenticity is confirmed beyond doubt. What we do know is this: it was recorded just 12 hours before his death. Sources close to the family say the file was hidden in a password-protected drive, recently unlocked through forensic access. The FBI has since classified the contents, but 2 lines were leaked. "I love my family, I love dancing. But they're going to say I gave up." And that's the part that hurts most. Since the arrest warrant was unsealed, Ellen has remained silent. Not a word, not a post. Her legal team issued one statement: "The charges are deeply misguided and entirely without basis." But outside her Montecito compound, nothing. No appearances, no denials, no Ellen. And that silence, once her brand, is now the loudest sound in this case. The trial resumes Monday. Prosecutors are pushing to play the final memo in open court. Ellen's lawyers are fighting to suppress it, citing privacy and hearsay rules. But this case has already changed something. The Ellen DeGeneres Show isn't just a canceled talk show anymore. It's now a case study in how far an image can stretch before it snaps. And Stephen Twitch Boss, he's gone. But maybe finally, he's being heard. But this time, his voice, his real voice, is finally being heard. And for the first time in years, Ellen isn't the one holding the mic. Her public admission wasn't met with relief. It was rupture, carefully worded, tightly controlled. But the moment it went live, it did nothing to stop the storm. Digital platforms exploded. Headlines sharpened. Ellen admits guilt, but will the system follow? That night, outside Warner Brothers studios, a crowd gathered. Not in protest of one person, but in mourning for a truth ignored for far too long. Posters read, "He danced so you could smile. You looked away when he cried." Candles were lit, not for punishment, but for reckoning. And prosecutors, they pivoted fast. This was no longer just a scandal. This was a cover-up culture. Subpoenas started flying, not just to Ellen or Diddy, but to talent agencies, former party attendees, high-level executives, even city officials tied to permits and protections. That's when it happened. A folder, missed by both family and investigators, buried in Twitch's cloud drive, titled Archived Contracts Shockwaves. It was a digital landmine, scanned NDAs, timestamps, signatures, emails between assistants and publicists discussing damage control and how to handle optics if Twitch flips. One line stood out, sent from a burner account to a major PR firm. "If he leaks, pivot to mental health. We've used it before." The courtroom wasn't just prosecuting a case anymore. It was stripping away the mask of Hollywood. And then Diddy spoke. After days of silence, his legal team filed a motion, immunity in exchange for cooperation. They argued that while Diddy hosted the parties, others created the rules. Inside a leaked proffer document, he didn't just redirect blame, he named names, including Ellen, not just as an attendee, but as an active recruiter. According to the document, Ellen was involved in inviting and recommending guests, often those within her influence, artists, assistants, dancers seeking opportunity. One name was underlined, Stephen Twitch Boss. This wasn't theory anymore. This was a structured operation, one that placed Twitch in dangerous rooms, then left him there. The response online? It changed. Support became sorrow. Sorrow turned to outrage, and a new hashtag began trending worldwide. Number he tried to tell us, he tried to leave. And then Allison Holker, who until now had quietly endured the media firestorm, finally broke her silence. Not from a studio, but outside the courtroom. Flanked by her legal team and tWitch's family, she read from a single page. He wasn't broken, he was betrayed. He wasn't depressed, he was disillusioned. He loved life, just not the life he was forced to live in silence. His only mistake was trusting people who mistook his kindness for consent. Her voice didn't shake, but the impact did. The statement ended with a formal request, an official inquest into whether Stephen Boss had been coerced, threatened, or drugged in the final days of his life. The motion was filed that same afternoon. What followed shattered any remaining doubt. Security footage, recovered from a hotel suite previously tied to one of the now infamous parties, showed Twitch entering, visibly tense. At his side, Ellen. The footage had no audio, but the body language said everything. He shook his head. She gestured down. He turned away. She touched his arm. He froze. 3 days later, they appeared in a cheerful Instagram clip, celebrating the show's finale. Now forensic lip readers were being called in to decode that elevator exchange. And for Ellen, who had already admitted moral complicity, this was a turning point, a shift toward criminal implication. Behind closed doors, her lawyers entered negotiations for reduced sentencing, in exchange for full cooperation in the widening investigation, and that's when a final detail emerged. Ellen had recorded a private video confession months before the scandal broke, never released, never meant to be found. It was titled, "If They Ask," stored on an encrypted drive, recovered only after her legal handover. In the video, her voice cracks. "I told him it would be fine. I told him to stop asking questions, because I was scared too. I didn't kill him, but I made sure no one helped him either." The tape was played in a closed-door session. No cameras, no press. But its effect rippled through the entire industry. Streaming platforms paused multiple talk shows pending review. PR firms cut ties with legacy stars. Foundations with celebrity names issued public apologies for looking the other way. This wasn't just scandal anymore. This was the start of a cultural reckoning, and it had already begun. It was accelerating. And through it all, the world finally heard the unfiltered voice of the man who spent a lifetime dancing for others. He didn't fade. He didn't fall. He stood. And when he spoke, the walls began to crack. The days that followed, unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. This wasn't a scandal. It was a collapse. Not a cancellation, but a confrontation. A slow-burning truth, now undeniable, began to dismantle decades of curated charisma, airtight contracts, and institutional silence. The public wasn't asking for accountability anymore. They were demanding transformation, and the fallout, it intensified. The California State Attorney's Office, under mounting pressure, confirmed a formal inquiry into the entertainment industry's coercive use of NDAs, especially those used to silence low-level employees, contractors, and performers. At the center of that inquiry, the Ellen DeGeneres Show, its production companies, and over a dozen guest lists tied to the now infamous gatherings known only as the Midnight Floors. But while the legal battles raged on, the personal toll deepened. Allison Holker, already mourning, already under siege, revealed her family had received anonymous threats. Paparazzi outside their home, children pulled from school. In a joint statement, she asked for privacy, but she also issued a warning. The people who want this buried aren't done. They've lost their shield. Now, they'll go after the witnesses. She wasn't exaggerating. Within days, 2 former assistants connected to Diddy's staff rescinded their statements. One cited intimidation, the other vanished from all social media. And then, a new twist. A prominent Hollywood fixer, long rumored to manage high-profile image crises, was found to have wiped entire records from multiple servers, photos, guest lists, logs. When questioned by federal agents, she invoked the Fifth Amendment. What emerged was chilling. The truth tWitch tried to expose wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. And yet, the voices kept rising. One letter, handwritten, no name, arrived at the court, postmarked from Nevada. In looping cursive, it described a party in 2017. Same penthouse, same rules, no phones, dark windows. Ellen arriving late, then giving quiet instructions to the room. The letter ended with just one line. "I thought I was alone. Now I know I'm not." Handwriting analysts verified its authenticity. Metadata backed the timeline. And just like that, everything shifted. This wasn't just about tWitch anymore. This was about all the ones who came before and those who never got to speak. In response, an independent coalition was formed. The Artist Integrity Review Board, made up of trauma specialists, performers, and legal experts. Its mission was simple: document abuse, safely, without fear. For the first time ever, there was a pipeline for stories to surface without retaliation. And the stories came. So many, so fast, a backlog formed in just weeks. As for Ellen, her silence returned. But this time, it wasn't strategic. It was court-mandated. She was formally charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy to suppress evidence. But it wasn't the charges that changed public sentiment. It was the sentencing hearing. No lawyer stood beside her. No statement was read on her behalf. Ellen walked to the microphone, paused, and said, "I stopped listening when I should have started. I laughed when I should have asked. And I'll carry that forever. No tears, no excuses." She was then sentenced to 2 years of restricted freedom under an experimental accountability program, combining monitored residency, financial restitution, and mandatory cooperation with federal investigations. Some called it lenient, others called it justice. But for those closest to Stephen Boss, it was something else entirely. On what would have been his 42nd birthday, a public memorial was held in downtown Los Angeles. Thousands gathered. Dancers from across the world performed. Some danced to tracks he helped create. Others moved in silence, letting their bodies carry the words that Twitch never got to say. Then Allison Holker stepped onto the stage. He wasn't a headline. He wasn't a hashtag. He was a father, a creator, a friend to so many of you. And today we dance, not because he's gone, but because he finally told his story and the world listened. From the crowd, a single voice called out. He didn't give up, and then more joined, louder and louder. He didn't give up. In that moment, everything changed. Stephen "Twitch" Boss wouldn't be remembered as the man who broke. He'd be remembered as the man who broke the silence.